Hey everybody, my name is Luis Montoya. This is my testimony. So, my whole life growing up, I heard about Jesus. I heard about Christ. My grandmother was a believer. My aunt was a believer. My father used to be Catholic. My mom believed, but we never practiced. So he was always on the back burner. I grew up in a life that was, let's just say, unusual. There was drugs around me, partying. My family loved me, but the Lord wasn't part of it. So I grew up on the street lifestyle, worldly lifestyle. You know, when I had my first big tragedy, 2003, when my sister passed away. She died suddenly out of the blue. It was a shock that sent me into a real depression. And at the time, I was around drugs, and I always said I would never do drugs. But after that, I just wanted to numb the pain. So I started using heavier drugs, meth, and like they said, addiction, you fell in love with it. So for years and years, I had a secret of meth addiction. Everybody in my family knew, but I was still working. I was a functioning addict, which I thought was okay at the time. A lot of people didn't know, but a lot of people did. At the time, I fell in love with my next door neighbor, who had no idea that I was using or anything like that. She just thought that's how I acted regularly. That was in 2009 that we started going together. So from 2003, when I started using, to 2009 when I met my wife, I had a little addiction. Then we ended up moving in together, having our daughter Layla. And it was doing all right for a while, and then I kept it away from her, but I was still using. Wasn't a while, still working, and then fast forward a couple years, we moved to Humboldt, lived there, and I came back down to help my father, who was bedbound, needed help, and we came down. My wife was pregnant. She gave birth, and my father passed away. So, again, just like before with my sister, I started using a lot more. And that's when the problems really started. And for the next couple years, our relationship was turbulent. We were living with my mom, and it was like me living with two females. It wasn't just me and my wife living with my mom. It was me versus them. And so it was a turbulent lifestyle, and we had our problems, and I had my addictions, and then I started dealing. I started making money and started trying to live the lifestyle. Still, they thought I was working and all that, and it's just terrible. And then 2016, my mom passed away January. And so I lost my sister, my mom, and my dad within years' time, and I was just devastated. So after a couple months, me and my girlfriend, Miriam, we ended up separating. So my big thoughts, I'm like, oh wow, well we're separated, and we're about to go to court over control over Layla, and just terrible. I ended up taking all my money out of the bank, and I had terrible people around me. They found out, and somehow I ended up getting robbed at gunpoint. Took all my life savings. I had nothing. I was just about to put the money on an apartment, get a new car, all that. So in one instant, I became homeless. I had nothing. I lost all my storages. I lost everything. I had nothing. And so for 8 months, I was on the streets trying to make a living, still having an addiction, which was most of my money went to that, but I always made sure I had enough money and collecting cans, bottles to get a hotel room for me and my daughter. You know, that's one thing that the Lord, I was still always in my daughter's life. No matter what I was going through, I was always a good dad, always in my daughter's life. So being on the street takes a toll on you. It really does. And me and Marion were going through a bad custody battle. But the judge wasn't doing a ruling until we do classes and all the court things. It was just terrible. And then one day, I went to pick up my daughter, and Marion, we met at a pizza place right down the street from her place that she was staying at with her mom's. We ate pizza. I dropped them off at the house, turned around to get back on the bus. As soon as I was getting on the bus, pop! Stray bullet came and hit my backpack. Thank God I had that backpack on, because I had a 2-liter, 2 tablets, and a DVD player. The bullet went straight through the 2-liter, 2 tablets, hit the DVD player, and that scrap metal went into my back. Blew me on the ground. I got up thinking I was getting shot at, ran, and then I took off my jacket and blood was just coming down. I ended up running, taking the bus to the hospital, talked to the police. They did an investigation, never found out who it was, but at that time it was like, I thought I was gonna die. In my mind, I'm like, I'm gonna die. And then the thought came over me, you're going to hell. You're gonna go to hell, die, and besides your daughter, you haven't done nothing important on this earth. I said, wow. So after a couple of days in the hospital, a day in the hospital, I left and bandaged up. I didn't have insurance, so they kick you out as soon as you're eligible. So I got out, went to my cousin's house who let me in for a couple of days, got out. I was roaming the streets and I realized that all my other stuff that I had, and it was gone. So now, not only did I have this back injury, scrap metal still coming out, micro pieces still coming out, any little clothes I did have was gone. So now I had a jacket that still had marks in it from the scrap metal. And I had pants on and shoes, and I smelled. And I remember finally my Aunt Patsy heard, and she called and said, come over for a little bit. Let's see what we could do. So I go over to my aunt's. She gives me food. Lets me take a shower, thank God, because my clothes stunk. And then she ended up buying me new pair of clothes. And I said, please, Aunt Patsy, let me stay a little bit. And she said, okay. And I said, I want to go to church. Something inside me wants to go to church. So I went to church, got there, nervous as could be, and then I met everybody. They were nice, and I said, wow, this is nice. And then the song came on, then the worship songs came on, and I'm bawling. I said, Lord, I give up. I'm done with this lifestyle. I need help. From that day, I opened that Bible and I started at nights reading it. And so after the day I got shot, I completely went cold turkey off drugs. And remember, being an addict from 2003 to 2016, end of 2016, go to complete cold turkey. No smoking, no drinking, everything. Without rehab, without cravings. That was a complete miracle of God. I believe that. So, so after a couple of weeks of going to church, I finally asked, can I bring my daughter to church? And Miriam and me were still arguing. She said, no, I'm not going to let you go to no cult. You're not getting my daughter wrapped up in anything like that. I said, okay, well, please, these are nice people. Just come one weekend and just see if they're nice and if it's okay. So Miriam, who grew up Muslim and who stopped practicing, came with me, and we entered the church together. Wow, Lord is amazing. She sat back, and then Good Father was playing his worship song. I look over, and she's there just bawling her eyes out. She accepted the Lord right then and there. She accepted the Lord right then and there. From that day on, we started talking again. We started being nice to each other. Said, hey, what happens if we give this one more shot? I'm saying it's a miracle because before we couldn't be in the same room for more than 10 minutes. And now all of a sudden, church, and now we're talking about getting together, and we're like, no, we can't. We don't have the money, we don't have the assistance to get our own place. Lord Almighty provided. I get a call from an old friend for years and years who owed me some money and said, hey, I got that $1,000 that you let me borrow years and years ago, and I'm sorry it's been so long, but here. I went that, and then found out we could get our housing back. And we managed to get, and we decided, let's give this a shot. We managed to get our housing together. So we got in our apartment. And this is the first couple, within the first 2 weeks of going to the church, of going back together, getting an apartment. Finding out we could get an apartment. So we end up getting back together, going to church. And so we're going to church, getting a ride. So it was we lived in City Heights, and we used to go to the church, Reunion Church in Santee. And we used to get a ride with my aunt. And anyway, my aunt, for some reason, for the next couple of weeks, couldn't go. And we did not want to miss church. So we took the bus 2.5 hours, because it was Sunday. Buses run hourly. 2.5, 3 hours to get to church on time. We did that for a couple weeks, helping out, doing whatever, joyfully. People at church found out. Nice couple. They ended up giving us a car. I remember I get the call. I'm in the middle of Chuck E. Cheese, just bawling. I'm crying because they said, hey, we have a car for you. I said, what? What could you be? So with that car, enabled me to go find a job. I got the job being able to travel to places, locations that I couldn't because of that car. And so within I started going to church in January, beginning of January. By March, the Lord had made it that we have a house. My addiction is gone. Me and Miriam are back together. My daughter's has a whole family again. A roof over our head, running water, food. Stuff people take for granted all the time, but we have it. And then we're reading the Bible, started really diving into it a little bit more, and we realized after all these years, because of God reads, let's get married. And so in April of that year, we ended up getting married together, becoming husband and wife. That was amazing. Now, post that. Unfortunately, the Reunion Church gets shut down. And so, because of that,